The sun was high and bright, its light cutting through the heavy curtains. Julian tried to push himself up, a hand pressed to the small of his back, but a deep, throbbing ache shot through him and he collapsed back onto the silk sheets with a pained groan. He cursed Ethan's name, his voice a raw whisper. The man was a monster, a brute. He heard the soft rustle of papers and knew Ethan was in the room. Ethan asked if he was feeling spirited, noting that Julian seemed to have energy left. He set aside a leather-bound folio and walked toward the bed, his footsteps silent on the thick rug. Parting the canopy curtains, he looked down at Julian, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, and inquired if he was hungry. Julian told him to go to hell. A reflexive kick was his first instinct, but the movement sent a fresh wave of agony through his back. A pained gasp escaped his lips as his leg fell limp, his face paling. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Ethan moved to help him, propping him up against the pillows. His large, surprisingly gentle hands began to massage Julian's lower back, the callous skin of his palms a strange friction against Julian's skin. Julian recoiled, telling him to get away. Ethan's voice was low, a casual threat woven into its calm tone, as he wondered aloud if Julian ever wanted to get dressed again. His hand moved lower, patting Julian twice with a deliberate slowness. Julian's teeth gritted with fury. He demanded to know what Ethan truly wanted from him. After Ethan's rebellion, his seizure of power, Julian had expected death. Instead, he had become a plaything, a bird in a gilded cage for over 6 months. He thought that if this was revenge, surely it had run its course. He pleaded for Ethan to finish it, whatever it was. Ethan's long eyes darkened at the word finish. A strange curve touched his lips as he reached down, his fingers toying with a small, golden bell attached to a delicate chain on Julian's ankle. He asked, his voice light and mocking, if the previous night hadn't been finishing enough for him. Shame and rage burned through Julian. He swung his hand, the sharp crack of his palm against Ethan's cheek echoing in the vast bedroom. Ethan had been his dog. Back when Julian was the heir to a political dynasty, the only son of a feckless, pleasure-seeking president. His mother, a woman of exotic foreign beauty, had been seen as a siren by the establishment. His father was a man lost to indulgence. And Julian, a product of this decadent union, was the spoiled, unchallenged successor. He'd been groomed for power since birth. His father, who neglected his own duties, insisted Julian attend daily lessons with a private tutor, a stern man named Mr. Albright. The old tutor often remarked that Julian, as the heir, ought to be a model for others. He would then list Julian's failures. 10 raps on the knuckles for incomplete homework. He remembered being caught sneaking a burger during a history lesson, which earned him 5. For skipping a session entirely, he received 20. For drawing a mustache on a portrait of a revered statesman, the punishment was 50. His station and his youth meant Mr. Albright's punishments were more symbolic than severe, but his mother doted on him excessively. She would hold Julian, weeping dramatically as she showed his father the boy's reddened palms, a color she secretly enhanced with her own blush. She lamented her own humble origins, claiming it was why her precious son was mistreated and looked down upon. She would threaten to waste away from grief, a performance her husband usually fell for. This time, however, he held firm, suggesting only that Julian select a few companions. He had heard that companions could take punishments in the heir's stead. His mother reluctantly agreed. An order was sent out. The nation's elite reluctantly presented their sons for the heir's inspection. Boys, fresh-faced and nervous, were brought in groups of 5. His mother, orchestrating the event with meticulous care, told Julian to give a small flower to whichever boy he favored. He was 7 years old. Ethan was 11. Amidst a sea of pressed shirts and nervous smiles, Julian's eyes landed on Ethan, whose face was a mask of cold indifference. He was quite simply the most beautiful. "I want him," Julian declared, pressing a small, ruby-carved camellia into Ethan's hand. He was the only one chosen. His mother addressed the boy with a sharp. She told Ethan it was his fortune to be chosen, and that he must serve the heir well. If any harm came to Julian, she would hold Ethan solely responsible. Of course, she added, if he did his job well and kept the heir happy, rewards would be plentiful. Before she could finish her speech, Julian eagerly dragged Ethan away to his private wing of the sprawling estate. His aide, Leo, scrambled after them, pleading for the young master to be careful. In his playroom, Julian planted his hands on his hips and ordered Ethan to get on the floor so he could ride him like a horse. Ethan remained motionless. Leo, arriving moments later, kicked the back of Ethan's knee, forcing him to the ground with a thud. He hissed at Ethan for daring to disobey the young master's command. Ethan's head bowed in submission, long lashes hiding the dark light in his eyes. Julian, taking this as compliance, gleefully climbed onto his back. He complained that Ethan wasn't moving and squirmed impatiently. Silently, Ethan began to crawl across the floor. Julian's childhood habit of going barefoot meant his rooms were covered in thick, white sheepskin rugs. Ethan's pace was agonizingly slow, as if he were deliberately dragging it out, or perhaps just being careful not to let Julian fall. The rocking motion made Julian drowsy. He grumbled that Ethan was a big, boring snail and jumped off his back. Leo immediately rushed forward, offering to play the horse himself, boasting that he'd learned how from the stable hands. His goofy antics made Julian laugh hysterically. When he turned back, he saw Ethan rising silently, his beautiful eyes hollow and lifeless, like a wooden doll. Julian's mood soured. He asked who had given him permission to stand. Ethan had no choice but to kneel again. Julian declared that from now on, Ethan had to do everything he said, or he would have his father ruin Ethan's entire family. He saw a flicker of something in Ethan's eyes then, a bright, intense stare that was quickly hidden as he lowered his head. Julian had assumed it was fear. He never knew that the boy had been thrilled by the threat, secretly wishing for the destruction of the family that had caused him so much pain. Now, in the present, Ethan didn't even flinch from the slap. He simply turned his head, a faint smile on his lips as he gently kissed the palm that had struck him. He praised Julian's strength, calling him his darling. The shamelessness of it was infuriating. Julian tried to pull his hand away, but Ethan's grip was like iron. He spat out the question of whether Ethan had any shame. A soft whimper escaped Ethan's lips. He suddenly leaned in, his mouth capturing Julian's in a rough, domineering kiss. Julian struggled, his fists beating weakly against Ethan's back. His protests were muffled, his mind growing hazy and pliant under the assault. He relaxed into it, only to jolt back to awareness when Ethan's lips traveled down his neck to the hollow of his throat. He pushed away, declaring that he was hungry and wanted to eat. He warned Ethan not to bite him, asking if he was some kind of dog. Ethan's reply, whispered against his cheek, was that he would only ever be Julian's dog. He carefully straightened Julian's collar before lifting him into his arms and carrying him to the dining room. Julian glanced at the red handprint on Ethan's cheek and felt a twinge of guilt, but he quickly suppressed it. Ethan deserved it. Leo, now the imposing chief of staff, directed servants as they laid out the meal. The dishes were simple, but they were all of Julian's favorites. It felt disturbingly normal, as if the only thing that had changed was the man in power. The sight of Leo filled Julian with a sudden, nameless rage. He knocked over a bowl of hot soup, splashing it all over Ethan. The servants immediately dropped to their knees, bracing for the new leader's wrath. Ethan's voice was devoid of emotion as he ordered them all to leave. They scrambled away as if granted a pardon. Leo shot Julian a worried, hesitant look before retreating as well. Ethan shed his damp outer jacket, then leaned close, resting his face in Julian's palm. He asked softly who had made his darling unhappy, suggesting that Julian could hit him again to feel better, just like the old days. The mention of the old days made something in Julian snap. He questioned if Ethan even remembered the past, when Julian was the heir, the future leader. He asked what he was now, Ethan's bed warmer? The words died in his throat. He clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms. Silently, Ethan pulled him into an embrace, allowing Julian to bite down hard on his shoulder. The betrayal by Ethan and Leo was a raw, bleeding wound that Julian tried not to think about. But today he couldn't hold it in. He only released his jaw when he tasted blood. He hung his head, unwilling to speak. He supposed that, aside from the nights spent in Ethan's bed, his life wasn't so different from before. He was too tired to push Ethan away. Ethan's voice was gentle. He told him not to cry, that it was all his fault. He tilted Julian's face up and wiped away his tears with his sleeve, just as he used to. Julian had been a sensitive child, prone to tears, often provoked by Trevor, the son of his father's chief political rival. Trevor's father, a ruthlessly ambitious senator, had always coveted the presidency, resentful that the position had gone to Julian's less capable father. One day, during his first ever equestrian lesson, all the children of the elite were dressed in riding gear. Ethan was on his knees, expertly dressing Julian, lacing his boots and tightening his belt. Julian was buzzing with excitement, picturing himself as a dashing, powerful figure on horseback. But Trevor's jeering voice cut through his fantasy. Trevor had laughed, shouting that Julian had a big butt, and that his mother said a big butt was good for having babies. The other children snickered. Julian's face flushed with shame, and he lunged at Trevor, ready to fight. Trevor danced away, taunting him. Humiliated, Julian stormed off, dragging Ethan with him. But as he walked, he felt as if everyone was staring at his backside. His steps faltered until he could barely move. He ran into his father, who was fishing for koi in the estate's central pond. Seeing his father, Julian burst into tears, burying his face in the man's expensive new suit. His father, annoyed but concerned, demanded to know what had happened. He looked to Ethan for an explanation. Julian tried to silence him, too embarrassed to have the story repeated, but Ethan recounted the tale with vivid, almost theatrical detail. His father roared with laughter, which only made Julian cry harder. Finally realizing his son's distress, the president tried to comfort him, but failed. He helplessly motioned for Ethan to step in. Ethan told Julian not to cry. He said that Trevor was built like a barrel and was clearly just jealous of Julian's superior physique. Julian's eyes widened, and he looked at Ethan, seeking confirmation. Ethan assured him that his form was regal and naturally inspired envy. He dried Julian's tears and then helped him ambush Trevor later, giving the bully a taste of his own medicine. Thinking of Ethan's past loyalty made Julian's heart soften, just a little. He looked at the blood seeping through Ethan's shirt and mumbled that he should see a doctor. As if on cue, his own stomach growled. A small smile touched Ethan's lips as he felt Julian's stomach. He suggested they eat first. After a few bites of food, however, a wave of nausea hit Julian, and he threw everything up. A doctor was summoned. After a long examination, the physician announced that there was nothing seriously wrong. He explained, with careful wording, that the summer heat combined with Julian's recent lack of a regular schedule had left him drained and in need of restorative care. After the doctor left with a prescription for vitamins and supplements, Ethan gently squeezed Julian's cheek. Julian glared back, filled with resentment. The heat of midsummer had settled in. Julian developed a fondness for iced lemonade, his favorite way to combat the oppressive humidity. One afternoon, waking from a nap, he found his room stuffy and went out to the garden pavilion to catch a breeze. Leo followed, cautioning him that he was on his 5th glass of the cold drink and should have less. Julian ignored him, draining the glass. Leo bowed deeply, apologized for his impertinence, and then firmly took the empty glass from his hand. Julian stared at him, his eyes cold and wary. Annoyed, he got up and returned to his bedroom, dismissing his entire entourage. Once he was sure he was alone, he threw himself onto the bed, drew the curtains, and carefully pulled a small, folded note from his sleeve. Leo had slipped it into his palm earlier. He unfolded it. It was a plan. 7th of July dawn. The old chapel at the base of the mountain. I will get you out. Samuel? What was he doing back here? A chance to escape. But did he really want to leave? The curtains were silently drawn back. Julian looked up into Ethan's smiling eyes. He asked his darling Julian what mischief he was up to. Ethan was carrying a velvet box filled with an assortment of delicate chains made of gold and silver, some adorned with jade, others with brilliant gemstones. They looked like necklaces a woman might wear. He told Julian to pick one. Julian quickly pulled a blanket over himself, hiding the note under his pillow as he did so. He told Ethan to get out, that he was tired and wanted to sleep. Ethan paid him no mind, selecting a silver chain with a ruby pendant. He remarked that Julian's fair skin would look stunning with red. Soon enough, Julian discovered the chain's purpose. When he woke, Ethan was gone. Julian lay listlessly in bed for a while before remembering the note. He fumbled under his pillow. It was still there. He burned the paper, relieved that Ethan hadn't found it. It was only then that he noticed the velvet box, placed conspicuously on his bedside table. A hot blush crept up his neck. Pervert. He decided then and there. He had to get away from Ethan. He could trust Samuel, who was an honorable man, unlike Ethan. Samuel and Ethan had once been considered the twin jewels of their social circle, paragons of looks, character, and intellect. Julian first saw Samuel at a state dinner for a foreign delegation. Samuel, acting as a protocol officer, was poised and elegant. Julian found his eyes drawn to him. When Samuel later approached to pay his respects, Julian had offered him a warm smile. That night, Ethan had been strangely sullen. He had formally greeted Julian, then asked why Julian wasn't smiling for him. He demanded a smile, even trying to physically pull up the corners of Julian's mouth. Annoyed, Julian had grabbed a decorative riding crop from a nearby display and lashed out. The first time he'd used it, he hadn't controlled his strength, and the blow left a bloody welt near Ethan's eye. Yet Ethan had smiled through it, calling Julian gentle, a blatant provocation. Julian had ordered him to take off his shirt and kneel. Looking back, he recalled his former power with a pang of nostalgia. After that, whenever Ethan displeased him, the riding crop came out. His aim improved. Ethan's pale skin would be marked with a pattern of red welts that, in Julian's artistic eye, formed the letter J. His favorite part was hooking the crop around Ethan's neck afterward, forcing him to look up, his eyes filled with only Julian. He would remind Ethan that he was his dog and had to obey. Once Samuel had walked in on this scene. Terrified of being reported, Julian had preemptively threatened him with the crop, telling him to mind his own business. Samuel, who had likely never witnessed such debauchery, turned red with anger and disgust. He stared at the crop in Julian's hand before Ethan. His voice, a low growl, ordered him to get out. Ethan then moved to stand in front of Julian, his arms, covered in red marks, protectively encircling him. His expression was fierce and possessive. To Julian's surprise, Samuel not only promised to keep silent, but also bowed respectfully before leaving. On July 9th, the annual diplomatic summit began. The entire political machine relocated to the presidential mountain retreat for 2 weeks. As they prepared to leave, Leo bustled about, trying to pack everything Julian might possibly need. In the old days, when his parents were alive, Julian had loved these trips. After he took power, however, the waterfalls, the streams, the secret caves, they all seemed dull and empty. The night before they left, Ethan insisted on making love to him in every corner of their private quarters, claiming he would miss him too much. Finally, he carried Julian to the grand study and sat him on the imposing leather chair behind the massive mahogany desk. He asked if Julian didn't want to look around, as it had been so long. But Julian was exhausted, his body limp and his eyes barely open. He fell into a deep sleep in Ethan's arms as dawn broke. At the retreat, Ethan was even busier, often working late into the night. He was far more diligent than Julian had ever been. But no matter how late, he always came to Julian's bed. He would slip in quietly, trying not to wake him, but his sleeping self would instinctively pull Julian into his arms. Any small movement from Julian would startle him awake. He would check that Julian was safe before drifting back to sleep. This possessiveness made Julian wonder how he could ever escape. Fortunately, Leo provided the solution, a powerful sedative. He explained that Ethan was too cautious for a simple drugging. Julian would have to administer it himself. He told Julian the drug was fast-acting and potent, and to be careful. As he handed over the vial, there was a look of grim determination in his eyes. Julian took it, and after a moment's thought, told Leo that he didn't blame him. He heard a choked sob from behind him as he walked away. It was already the evening of July 6th, just hours before his planned rendezvous with Samuel. As night fell, Julian swallowed the antidote, then launched himself at Ethan, kissing him with a desperation that was entirely feigned. It was the first time he had ever initiated anything. Ethan was pliant, letting Julian take the lead, but the intensity in his eyes was unnerving. Julian covered Ethan's eyes with his hand, and in the heat of their kiss, passed the drug from his own mouth to Ethan's. Ethan's response was sudden and fierce, his kiss turning savage. Julian's heart hammered in his chest, terrified the ruse had failed. But soon, Ethan's strength began to fade, and he slumped into unconsciousness. Without a backward glance, Julian left. He knew all the secret passages of the retreat. His father had shown them to him as a boy. He was confident he could evade the guards, especially with Samuel waiting for him. He didn't see Ethan's eyes open the moment he slipped out of bed. He pushed open the heavy oak door of the old chapel. By the moonlight filtering through the stained glass, he saw a tall, solitary figure standing before the altar. He called out Samuel's name. The man rushed forward and pulled him into a tight, desperate hug. Julian started to struggle, and Samuel immediately stepped back, his brief loss of composure vanishing as if it had never happened. He urged Julian to follow him, explaining that a car was waiting outside the city. A black horse, almost invisible in the darkness, was tied up behind the chapel. Samuel lifted Julian onto the saddle and swung up behind him. The landscape began to blur as they rode. Julian leaned against Samuel, looking back one last time. Samuel asked if something was wrong. Julian shook his head, pushing away the confusing tangle of his thoughts. Samuel told him that once they were clear of the city, they would travel south by river. He had planted several acres of peach trees there, remembering that Julian loved them. Julian told him he was no longer a person of importance, that Samuel didn't have to call him sir. Samuel's reply was firm. He would serve only Julian for the rest of his life. A tunnel at the base of the mountain led directly outside the city's perimeter. Inside, it was dark and narrow, and the sound of rushing water echoed off the damp walls. At the entrance, Samuel dismounted and sent the horse away with a slap on its rump. Julian, unable to see well in the dark, clung to Samuel's sleeve. Samuel, who seemed to know the way perfectly, warned him to be careful of the underground river that flowed through in the summer. Julian asked how he knew of this secret passage. Samuel explained that Julian's father had told him, instructing him to use it to get Julian to safety if there was ever trouble. The mention of his parents brought tears to Julian's eyes. Just as they neared the exit, where a sliver of moonlight was visible, a familiar voice drifted from the opening. I also know about it. Why didn't Julian come ask me? Julian instinctively dropped Samuel's sleeve. He glanced guiltily toward the figure silhouetted at the tunnel's mouth. Ethan's expression was glacial, a cold fury radiating from him that was more terrifying than any outburst. Julian wondered how he could be here. Had his father told everyone about this tunnel? Then it hit him. Ethan had faked it. The sedative. In a flash of understanding, Julian's fear turned to rage. He accused Ethan of being a deceitful bastard, of using Leo to trick him again. Ethan let out a cold, humorless laugh. He denied tricking him and told Julian to come to him. From the shadows behind Ethan, a dozen armed guards emerged, sealing the exit. Julian was frozen in place. Ethan's voice softened slightly as he reminded Julian that it was his birthday. He said he had a gift for him, and they should open it together. He held out a hand, but seeing the thunderous look on his face, Julian didn't move. Samuel drew a small, sharp blade shielding Julian. He called Ethan a traitor who deserved death. Ethan sneered back, mocking Samuel for his by-the-book righteousness. Then, his brow furrowed in annoyance, and he snapped at Samuel to put the knife away before he scared Julian. Julian thought, "I'm scared of you." As Ethan started to advance, Julian snatched the knife from Samuel and held it to his own neck. He told Ethan not to move. Ethan froze, his eyes widening in horror, his expression turning terrifyingly dark. Realizing the tactic was working, Julian motioned for Samuel to stay calm. He ordered Ethan to back away. When Ethan complied, he made his demand. That Ethan promised not to punish Samuel, that this was all Julian's idea. He insisted that as the leader, Ethan had to give his word. Fine, Ethan ground out, the word torn from his throat. He pleaded with Julian to put the knife down. The blade was heavy, and Julian wanted to drop it, but he felt a foolish need to save face. Just then, the ground began to tremble violently. He heard both Ethan and Samuel shout his name as they lunged toward him. There was a deafening roar. The last thing he saw was the knife snapping in two. When he awoke, a young man with striking green eyes and a serious expression was applying ointment to his leg. Seeing him awake, the man offered him a glass of water. Julian didn't take it. He asked who he was and where they were. The man introduced himself as Adrian and explained that he had found Julian unconscious on a riverbank. They were now in a motel just outside the city. Fragments of memory returned. Falling rocks, the dark rush of an underground river. He had been swept out of the city. He was incredibly lucky to be alive. Adrian asked if he was hurt anywhere else. His English was halting, and he watched Julian with a look of profound guilt. He explained that he was a prince from a small European nation, traveling with a diplomatic mission. Their convoy's tribute had accidentally fallen into the river, and they found Julian while trying to retrieve it. The mission's shaman, a canny old man, had a brilliant idea. Instead of recovering the lost goods, they would present Julian as a tribute to the new leader. Adrian apologized, explaining he was powerless to stop it. He then excused himself, leaving Julian to his thoughts. He tried to move his leg and winced, a fresh wave of pain making him break out in a sweat. That night, a dark-clothed figure shook him awake. He was about to strike out when he realized it was Adrian. The young prince put a finger to his lips, then carefully lifted Julian onto his back. They crept out of the motel, past the drunken members of his delegation. When they reached a small grove of trees outside the city gates, Adrian gently set him down. He told Julian to go home, pressing a heavy pouch of jewels into his hand. Julian was stunned. He hadn't even said he wanted to leave. He asked if Adrian wouldn't get in trouble with the shaman. Adrian replied that he wanted Julian to be free and happy. His happiness was short-lived. The shaman and his men caught up to them. Adrian was restrained, and the shaman berated him in their native tongue while beating him with an ornate staff. For security, they locked both Julian and Adrian in a room. Adrian, weeping, confessed that he had fallen for Julian at first sight and couldn't bear to see him harmed. He told Julian his own tragic story. He suspected his uncle and mother had conspired to murder his father, the king, so his uncle could usurp the throne. He swore that once he had his revenge, he would return for Julian, making him the most honored queen, his one and only wife. Julian frowned and interrupted, "I'm a man." Adrian's reply was immediate. "Men can be queens too. But I don't like you. I like..." Julian trailed off, unable to say the name. "That's okay," Adrian said earnestly. "I don't mind sharing. I mind. I came into your life late. Could I be your concubine?" The next morning, the shaman was in a rage. The 5-day summit had been cut to 1, and the gift-giving ceremony was cancelled. He felt slighted. Still, he decided a gift must be given. He tossed a bundle of red silk at Adrian and ordered him to dress Julian in it. Adrian's hands trembled as he held up the sheer, scandalously small garment, his face flushing crimson. The shaman, Julian noted with grim amusement, had tastes remarkably similar to Ethan's. The tribute was delivered to the mountain retreat. Portly, unfamiliar aide was directing staff. The exotic animals were sent to the National Zoo, the jewels to the treasury. Then he came to the human tributes. He hesitated, unsure of the new leader's preferences, before pointing. He selected a few of the most beautiful women, and then, pointing to the back row, added, "And that one in red. Take them to be trained. The rest go to the service staff." As they were led away, Julian realized he didn't recognize a single person. His leg ached from the walking, so he asked the young attendant leading them where the president was. The attendant snapped at him to hold his tongue. Him that asking about the leader's whereabouts was a good way to lose his head. Just as Julian was about to retort, a voice beside him sneered, "What a little fool. So eager." A stunningly beautiful man with painted lips leaned close. Julian pushed him away. The man introduced himself as Red Candle and complimented Julian's looks. saying the president would surely love him. He moved closer again, and Julian edged away. Suddenly, the attendant hissed for them all to kneel, for the president was approaching. As Julian was about to call out Ethan's name, someone pushed him hard from behind. He stumbled and fell into the middle of the path. An official's voice boomed, demanding to know who was causing a disturbance. He saw Red Candle's triumphant smirk. Enraged, Julian pushed himself up and yelled Ethan's name with all his might. The attendants who came to drag him away froze, looking at him as if he were insane. But then Ethan was there, running toward him. Julian sat on the ground and held out his arms. In front of everyone, the dark-clothed leader swept the man in red into his arms and carried him away toward his private chambers, his voice urgent as he ordered them to be left alone. Ethan examined every inch of him, his relief palpable when he found only the minor injury on his leg. His voice was unsteady as he asked if Julian had been scared in the water. Julian had never seen him so undone. He lied, claiming he was a good swimmer and had gotten to shore quickly. Ethan's eyes were bloodshot and his lips were chapped, but they were filled with a desperate relief that touched Julian. He patted Ethan's head comfortingly. The movement caused the sheer silk of his garment to flutter up, brushing against Ethan's face. Ethan's body went rigid. His expression slowly hardened into a dangerous mask. An ill premonition washed over Julian. Ethan's voice was dangerously low. "Dressed like this, did you have fun?" Julian muttered that he wasn't the one who chose the outfit. He knew Ethan's mental state was fragile, so he didn't mention the shaman. Ethan's cold hands gently touched his injured leg. He repeated his questions, his voice a hypnotic, terrifying whisper. "Were you scared in the water? Did you have fun?" He lifted Julian's leg, and a shiver of pure fear ran down Julian's spine. He tried to inch away. A low laugh rumbled in Ethan's chest, a chilling sound devoid of humor. He said, still trying to run. One hand pinned Julian's back while the other produced a long, thin riding crop. Julian scrambled forward, trying to escape as the cold leather touched his skin. He demanded to know what Ethan was doing, crying that this wasn't how it was supposed to go. Ethan's voice was laced with a bitter poison. He said this was the gift he had made for Julian's birthday, but Julian had broken his promise of every year and run off with someone else. It had broken his heart. The whip cracked through the air. A sharp, searing pain made Julian scream, tears instantly blinding him. He shouted that he wouldn't have come back if he'd known this would happen. "Where would you have gone?" Ethan snarled. "South," Julian sobbed. "Samuel planted peach trees for me. All you do is hurt me." "Samuel is so devoted to you," Ethan mocked. "No wonder you chose him. Unlike me." "Don't hit me," Julian begged, the pain coming again and again. He was babbling, incoherent with pain and fear. He cried that his leg hurt. The next blow landed off-center. A scream of pure mortification was torn from his throat. He clutched at Ethan's hand, his body trembling. He sobbed that he was sorry, that he would never run again, that he shouldn't have worried him. Then he added a final, humiliating plea. "Don't just hit one side." It was 3 days before he saw the sun again. Ethan, after his rage subsided, became gentler, but only slightly. Julian felt bruised and tender all over. Awake, Ethan's voice came from beside the bed. He pulled back the curtains, holding 2 small jars. Julian ignored him, pulling the covers over his head. Ethan gently took his leg and began to apply a cool, soothing balm. Peeking out, Julian saw Ethan's focused expression, the way his long lashes shadowed his cheeks. He looked almost tender, a completely different person from the monster of the past few days. After tending to his leg, Ethan opened the second jar. He pushed the blanket down to Julian's waist. Julian quickly covered himself, glaring at Ethan with accusing eyes. He said that Ethan was the one who hurt him and now he was pretending to be nice. Ethan's reply was a cold question. Still disobedient? He set the jar down and stood to leave. Lying alone, Julian felt a wave of miserable loneliness. The dog. He hurt me and he won't even comfort me. He actually left. Petty. I came back, didn't I? I missed you a little. He lay there, counting on his fingers. From 7 to 19. 12 years. He couldn't leave Ethan. But he couldn't stop wondering. Was this revenge? Or was it love? How much of each? The door opened again. Ethan saw Julian wrapped up like a cocoon and sighed with a mixture of exasperation and amusement. He said that if Julian didn't want the ointment, they could try another way. He ignored Julian's protests, slipping a hand under the covers. The other tributes were sent away, except for Red Candle. He had tried to have Julian killed, and Julian would see him punished. After dealing with a backlog of state affairs, Ethan took Julian to the high-security prison. He remarked on how popular Julian was, how someone always tried to steal him away the moment Ethan's back was turned. Julian, still sore, refused to walk, so Ethan carried him. He said Samuel was the most despicable of them all. After Samuel had stumbled upon them that day, Julian had been pleased by his discretion and invited him for a drink. Samuel, who rarely drank, had become flushed. His gaze fixed on Julian with an intensity that reminded Julian of someone else. Then the real Ethan had arrived and dragged him away without a word. Ethan had complained that Julian was too naive, that he fell for any handsome face. Julian had retorted that he was the heir, and it was Samuel who was trying to get close to him. Ethan had been silenced by this logic, muttering only the strange comment that Samuel was just jealous of the whip. Later, Ethan had been sent away by Julian's father to investigate the rival senator's suspected treason. In that 1 month, both of Julian's parents died suddenly. He was left alone, surrounded by wolves, lost in grief. It was Samuel who had stayed by his side during that dark time. In the damp prison cell, Samuel was as composed as ever. When he saw Julian, a complex smile touched his lips. He started to greet him before a joyful voice cut him off. It was Adrian, his golden hair a splash of light in the gloom, ecstatic to see Julian again. And in another cell was Leo, weeping that he had failed his master. Ethan whispered in Julian's ear that he could release 2 of them. It was his choice. Adrian, who had been brought in under a vague cloud of suspicion, was released and promptly deported with a stern never to return to the country. Ethan watched, his jaw tight, as Adrian tearfully said goodbye to Julian. "What about your promise not to punish Samuel?" Julian asked. Ethan replied that Samuel was being detained for entering the capital without authorization, not for trying to run away with Julian. Julian insisted he be released. "And the other one?" Ethan prompted. "Aren't you going to save Leo?" Julian covered Ethan's mouth. He gave his verdict. Samuel and Adrian were to be sent away from the capital. Leo would not be released. He would stay by Julian's side. He reminded Ethan that he had promised to do whatever Julian said. And so Samuel was sent to a remote northern outpost. As for Leo, his high-ranking position was revoked, and he received 30 lashes. Now, hobbling on a cane, he tried to support Julian, who was also walking with a limp. Leo explained everything. He was the son of an official who had been framed for treason and executed. The mastermind behind it was the former Secretary of State, a man who had seemed like a family friend. Ethan had revealed the truth to Leo, and Leo, bent on revenge, had agreed to help Ethan. His only regret, he said with tears in his eyes, was betraying Julian. Julian dismissed him, wanting to be alone. He wandered to the garden, where the lotus flowers his mother had loved were in full bloom. He watched the koi his father had kept glide through the water and tried to sort through his feelings for Ethan. He realized, with a sense of finality, that he really did love him. His thoughts were interrupted by a group of brightly dressed young women. One of them, a girl in pink, ordered her maid to pick one of the lotus flowers. Her friend warned her that they were in the presidential garden. But the girl in pink, whom they called Nora, was dismissive. She boasted that her father said the new president loved vibrant, beautiful women and would soon be choosing a wife. With her looks and family connections, she would soon be mistress of this garden. Choose a wife? As the maid reached for a flower, Julian's voice cut through the air like a whip. Don't touch that. This whole pond was planted by his father for his mother. The girl, Nora, demanded to know who he was to give her orders. The other women whispered amongst themselves, and one leaned in to tell Nora that this must be the man the president had brought back from the retreat. Nora's eyes filled with contempt. She called him a creature from the backwoods, a man who used seduction to gain favor. Her maid told Julian to kneel before Lady Nora, the daughter of a powerful duke. Julian had never kneeled for anyone in his life. He ignored them and simply repeated his, if they touched the flowers, they would be thrown out. He turned to leave, intending to find Ethan and demand an explanation. How dare you, Nora shrieked, grabbing his arm. Julian, still unsteady on his feet, tried to push her away. At that moment, Ethan's furious voice called out from across the lawn. The girl, Nora, suddenly pulled on Julian's hand and threw herself backward into the pond, making it look as if he had pushed her. It was a pathetic, cliché move. Julian, are you hurt? Ethan rushed to his side, his hands checking him for injuries. Julian shook his head and pointed to the sputtering girl being pulled from the water. He complained that she had almost crushed the flowers. The girl began to cry, telling Ethan that she had only tried to speak to this young man, but he had insulted and shoved her. Ethan's face was like stone. He walked over and kicked the so-called Lady Nora back into the water, then turned and left, carrying Julian with him. Hanging on to Ethan, one arm around his neck, Julian tugged on his ear. They said you're going to choose a wife. Will you get married? It wasn't the first time he'd asked. When he was 16, his father had tried to arrange a marriage for Ethan. Julian had forbidden it. His father had tried to reason with him, but Julian was adamant. He had snuck out of the estate and stormed Ethan's family home, demanding to see him. He found Ethan in a small, Spartan courtyard. The room contained only a simple wooden bed and a rickety desk. He sat on the bed and demanded to know if Ethan wanted to get married. Ethan had just looked at him, his expression unreadable. Taking his silence as a yes, Julian had slapped him, angrily declaring that no one would ever want to marry him with his pathetic little room. He forbade it. Ethan, a red handprint blooming on his cheek, had smiled. He told Julian he would not marry. He took Julian's hand and led him out, his mood seeming strangely bright. The arranged marriage was never mentioned again. But now Ethan was the president. What if he no longer listened? I will not get married, Ethan said again, the same answer as all those years ago. A breeze stirred the air, carrying the scent of lotus blossoms and tangling their hair together. Ethan took Julian's hand and placed it over his heart. My heart will only ever beat for you, he whispered, his own heart thudding against Julian's palm. I have done wrong. I hurt you because I was a coward, too afraid to ask for more. All I ask is that you don't leave me. Give me a chance to make it right." Then his voice dropped even lower. "Marry me. September 9th would be a good day." Julian's own heart was racing. He decided a kiss would be his answer. He leaned in, and Ethan closed his eyes, their foreheads touching. After a moment, Julian pulled back and bit him, just lightly. "You dog," he said. "If you had said this sooner, none of this would have happened." After he had first taken power, Julian had been just like his father, neglecting his duties and leaving everything to Ethan. Mr. Albright had warned him that Ethan was a ruthless wolf who had destroyed his own family and could not be trusted. But Julian hadn't cared. Ethan had been efficient, reforming education and opening new trade routes. He was Julian's dog. He would always be loyal. He had sworn it himself, kneeling at Julian's feet. The old tutor had left, sighing in defeat. The next day, he returned with a delegation of elders and a stack of portraits. They insisted the nation needed an heir, that it was time for Julian to choose a wife and secure the future. He flipped through the portraits, bored. None were as beautiful as Ethan. Then he saw one that looked a little like him. He imagined Ethan in a wedding dress and laughed. Leo had leaned in then, whispering that Mr. Ethan had arrived and was waiting outside. It was the night of the Lantern Festival, and Ethan had promised to take him out on the river. He had been so excited that he didn't notice Ethan's strange mood. Later, sitting on the boat, fishing in the moonlight, Ethan had fed him wine. The night air was cool, but his vision began to blur. He dropped his fishing rod, slumping against Ethan. When he awoke, he was naked, his hands bound. He thought he'd been kidnapped, but then he saw Ethan sitting at the foot of the bed. A gag prevented him from speaking. He heard Leo's voice outside the door and struggled, trying to make a sound. Ethan calmly went out to speak with him. Listening to their conversation, Julian's blood ran cold. Ethan was the new president. He was a deposed ruler. Even Leo had been on his side. Mr. Albright's words came back to him. A wolf in sheep's clothing. When Ethan returned, Julian was sobbing uncontrollably. Ethan removed the gag to give him some water. Julian lunged forward and bit his hand, screaming through his tears that the tutor had been right, that he had been blind. He shrieked that he should never have kept Ethan by his side, that Samuel was 1,000 times better. Ethan's gentle movements stopped. His eyes became terrifying. He flipped Julian over and bit down hard on the nape of his neck. After that day, the small golden bell was permanently fastened to his ankle.